All right, going to call a budget meeting of council to order for Tuesday, February 4th, 2025. Take approval of the agenda, please. Councillor Norbury, please.
That the February 4th, 2025 Budget Council meeting agenda be adopted as presented.
Seconder. Councillor Dussault. All in favor? Carried. New business review and approval of the draft 2025 operating budget report dated February 4th, 2025 from the Chief Financial Officer regarding the review and approval of the draft 2025 operating budgets. Recommendation? So I guess just before we do that, I'd be curious, I mean, to me, we should put it for discussion, but before we get that far, what's council's preference? Do we want to do one operating budget at a time or do it as a whole? One at a time? Councilor Jilek, one at a time? Councilor Dussault? Good. Okay, I'll put the council receives the review and approval of the draft 2025 operating budget report for discussion. Councilor Norbury, second. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. I might have to flip to that page now because you guys are on different page numbers. Okay, let's start with the first one, which would be council's, but I mean, ours isn't, we did ours. So if there's any questions, concerns, questions for staff in regards to council's budget? Okay, I'll take a motion for council's budget, operating budget to be approved. Councilor Norbury?
I'll motion that council operating budget be approved.
As presented? Yep. Seconder? Councilor Dussault? Sorry to add for that. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Carried. Okay, the next operating budget would be administration. Any questions, comments from council? Any, Councillor Jilek?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, I noticed office equipment, I've noticed it in a couple of the budgets, and it's not that it's a big deal. I'm just wondering, are we upgrading desks, chairs, computer? Like, just looking at it, just a general increase in office equipment budgets. Finance went, or administration went from 4,100 budget to 6,200 budget.
Yeah, Ms. Scott?
Yes, there are some laptops that are aging out that will have to be replaced.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions from council? Any highlights from yourself, Ms. Scott?
No highlights, no.
Okay. Take a motion in regards to approving the administration budget. Councillor Noxena?
I can make a motion that we approve administration's budget as presented.
Seconder? Councillor Norbury? Discussion? Councillor Jilek?
Sorry, I forgot it was on this budget. So the grant and aid that's listed there for the budget amount, that's before we've finished the two, like, so there's the one coming from, does it include the stuff that we looked at yesterday?
Yeah, there, I would, that number was already added in there, but that number could change on any decisions made by council.
Okay, so when we make this motion today, what does that mean for that line?
It means those funds would be there if once we, I mean, I'll confirm it with staff, but to me, those funds will be there if we decide to support those organizations that we've asked to come in as delegations. And
So
and some we deferred because we just received their financials, but Ms. Scott, I just want to confirm that.
That line is just library.
Sorry?
That line is just
There
library.
you go, just library.
Okay, and that could change after we receive them as a delegation.
Correct.
Correct. Yeah, so they're going to come in, okay? Any other discussion? Okay, going to call the question. All in favor? Carried. The next operating budget would be finance. Any questions from council? Councillor Jilek?
Again, for the office equipment, they spent 14,000 last year. And then they've budgeted again for 20, so I'm assuming we're doing computer upgrades. Just wanted to confirm that.
Yeah, Ms. Scott?
I will direct that question to the Director of Finance, since that is their budget, who can provide that information for you.
Yeah, through the mayor to Councillor Julick. It's for equipment for laptops, because we've got outdated desktops and we're trying to move over towards laptops. And then the other portion of it is we've got outdated chairs for the staff that are sitting in. And so we've done some ergonomics, and we want to proceed with getting chairs that are suitable.
Okay, any other questions from council? Ms. Scott, just want to just confirm, no highlights from staff?
I don't have anything to highlight. I will ask the Director of Finance if she has anything that she would like to highlight in this budget.
Thank you, Your Worship. Going forward with the finance budget, the only thing I wanted to highlight is it looks like there's a significant number that's going because of a decrease, but it is only a $30,000 decrease in grant revenue, and the total amount of the other revenue is made up of taxation as well as grant revenue. So it can be a little misrepresented.
Okay, thank you. I take a motion, or no, there's already a motion on the floor, right? Is it no? Take a motion from council. Sorry, just because it was the previous one. Councilor Norbury?
That we adopt finance budget as presented.
Seconder? Councilor Dussault? Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Carried. Okay, next one up is going to be the fire department operating budget. Any questions from council? Okay, take a motion from the floor, please. Councilor Roxana?
I can motion that we accept the fire budget as presented.
Seconder? Councilor Norbury? Okay, any other discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Carried. I think I'm going to do this a little bit different way going forward, so we don't end up with two different discussion topics here. Take a motion for bylaw. Councilor Roxana?
Motion that we, for discussion, or you want it?
No, just for approval, and then we'll discuss it. So we're discussing it, we're actually having two opportunities to have the same discussion. So
Okay.
I think if we do put the motion on the floor for approval, and then we can discuss it all we want, and make
Motion
changes.
that we approve the bylaw budget as presented.
Thank you. Seconder? Councilor Norbury? Discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Carried. Next up is building inspection. Take a motion first, please. Councilor Norbury?
That we approve the building inspection budget as presented.
Seconder? Councilor Roxana? Discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Carried. Take another motion for emergency services. Councilor Dussault?
I make a motion that we accept the emergency services as presented.
Seconder? Councilor Roxana? Discussion? Questions from council? I just want to apologize to the fire budget and bylaw and building inspection. I didn't ask if there was anything that they had any points to make. So after this next motion is done, we'll go back. I just think it's only right, if that's okay with you, Ms. Scott, just in case there was something there. I came in and had a question from Ms. Scott, and maybe council's aware of what the emergency service budget is. Maybe we're not. So I asked what the emergency service budget is. Ms. Scott?
I will defer this question to the Director of Protective Services, since this forms part of his budget, so he can explain to you the difference and what the emergency services budget is.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Good evening, Mayor and Council. The emergency services budget incorporates all things emergency management as well as emergency support services through activations and support for anything emergency-wise. So if we had, for example, a house fire where we had a displaced family, we would have emergency support services staff that would be able to attend to that family and make sure that their needs are met in the short term. This allows for training for them, as well as everything else emergency management wise for our EOC. It's kind of all kind of clumped together in emergency services.
Perfect. Thank you. I just think it was important. It was, we had a conversation. I think it's just noted to make sure that we understand what that part is when we talk about fire department stuff and why it's separated, so. Okay, any other discussion? Okay, gonna call the question. All in favor? Carried. Ms. Scott, this time I would ask if there was any points that staff would like to make in regards to fire and bylaw.
I don't have any highlights to point out, but again, I will ask the Director of Protective Services if he has any highlights from any of the budgets that he would be responsible for preparing, which include emergency services, building inspection, bylaw, fire, if there's any highlights that he needs to point out.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. The only thing I wanted to bring to council's attention would actually be in attachment H for animal control. And that's where you're going to see a reduction in the Wild Safe BC grant contributions. So we've been unsuccessful in filling a Wild Safe BC coordinator position for the last 3 years. And we've been relying on contractors to come in. So it hasn't been attractive. So we've been pursuing money into the program every year in the hopes that we were going to have that facilitated. This year, we're not going to be submitting anything, understanding that it just has been unsuccessful in years past.
Okay, thank you very much for that information. Okay, I would take a motion for animal control. Councilor Norbury,
Thank you, Mayor. I'll motion that the animal control budget be approved as presented.
seconder. Councilor Noxana, discussion? Okay, gonna call the question. All in favor? Carried. Okay, moving on to economic development. Take a motion, please. Councilor Noxana,
Motion that we accept the economic development budget as presented.
seconder. Councilor Dussault, discussion? Ms. Scott, I have a couple. I know we've had a conversation already, but within this budget, just in regards to labor and stuff, have we budgeted any funds in regards to if we were to decide to host a booth at the UBCM for 2025 and possibly a booth for 2026 for the FCM, which I understand wouldn't be in the same budget, but.
As this budget is prepared by the Economic Development Department, I will defer that question to the Director of Economic and Community Development.
Thank you, Ms. Scott, and good evening, Mayor and Council. So for this year, we did not budget for UBCM for 2025 as we did FCM last year. So if that's something that council is interested in doing, we can look into that for this year. We did reduce the trade shows line for this year under the assumption that we wouldn't be doing either of those larger shows this year, which do cost more money than our typical trade shows.
Okay. Thanks for the reply. And I mean, it might be a conversation that, maybe might be not tonight. We maybe should look at something. I believe there was supposed to be a report come forward, so maybe we can do that. And the reason I asked that question was we did attend trade show by staff was attended at UBCM in Vancouver. To me, the opportunity here is where this year in 2025 will be in Victoria. So honestly, I can't say I know it for sure, but I look at the policies we have in place for the FCM when it's the mayor and up to 2 councillors that can attend the FCM. There may be some smaller municipalities on Vancouver Island that have the same kind of a policy if UBCM was to be held off the island. So maybe this is another way of using that pillar of tourism and having our booth out there. I mean, I know we're waiting to hear back on the success of the FCM and the UBCM when it was done previously. But I just wanted to ask that question if it was pre-budgeted for or not. So that's why I asked the question. Just want to make sure council knows why. Any other discussion from council? Are there any topics that staff would like to discuss within economic development, Ms. Scott?
Again, I will ask the Director of Economic and Community Development if there's anything in this budget that she would like to highlight.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. And just in thinking about the trade shows again, I'm pretty sure when I reached out to UBCM last time that they don't have a trade show when it's in Victoria because the venue is too small. I can confirm that, but when I discussed it with them after 2024, I'm pretty sure that that's what the response was, that they only did a trade show every second year when it was in Vancouver. But I can confirm. But other than that, yeah, I have a lot of special projects, as you'll see. Most of them were started last year and are ongoing, and yeah,
Perfect, thank you for that. And staff may be correct on that, because I know it's definitely not hosted in Whistler. I'll be honest, I've not attended UBCM in Victoria. So I'm unaware of that for sure. Even in Whistler, I would say they don't have a trade show, but they allow booths being set up in the foyers. I don't know if it's first person to the door, but they do have them in Whistler. But again, Whistler does not have a trade show because of the venue. I can't confirm. I'm not sure if, Councilor, if you ever attended. Yeah, I never attended Victoria, but it might be just worth having that information if we decided to go somewhere. Okay, any more discussion by council? Okay, can I call the question? All in favor? Carried. Okay, I'll take a motion for Public Works. Councilor Norbury,
That we approve the public work budget as presented.
seconder. Councilor Noxena. Discussion? Ms. Scott, from staff side, anything they want to highlight?
I will ask the Director of Operations if he has anything he would like to highlight in this budget.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Mayor and Council, I have nothing further to add.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, any other thing, discussion from council? Okay, can I call the question? All in favor? Carried. Take a motion for solid waste. Councilor Dussault?
I make a motion that we accept solid waste as presented.
Thank you. Seconder, Councilor Noxena. Any discussion from council? Ms. Scott, anything that staff would like to highlight from solid waste?
I do not have anything to highlight, but again, I will ask the Director of Operations if he has anything he would like to highlight in this budget.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Mayor and Council, I have nothing further to add.
Thank you. Any discussion from council? Okay, can I call the question? All in favor? Carried. Take a motion for parks. Councilor Noxena,
Make a motion that we accept the parks budget as presented.
seconder. Councilor Dussault. Okay, any discussion from council? Ms. Scott, anything from staff that they'd like to highlight within parks budget?
Again, I will defer to the Director of Operations in case he has anything he would like to highlight in this budget.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Mayor and Council, I have nothing further to add.
Thank you. Anything else for discussion from council? Okay, going to call the question. All in favor? Carried. Golf course. Take a motion for the golf course. Councilor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Kakalka. A motion, we accept the golf budget as presented.
Seconder. Councilor Noxena. Discussion. Ms. Scott, I do have a couple. Last year, information was brought to council requested by myself in regards to possibly a motion or direction that was given in the previous years in regards to course marshals. When that report came before council 100% did not support adding a course marshal to the golf course. I'm well aware that we had a course marshal on majority of the days at the golf course. My curiosity would be is how was that funded in 2024 if there was no budget for that?
It's my understanding that while there wasn't a court martial, that staff that was already at the golf course, whether it was in the pro shop or groundskeepers, as a part of those duties, did go out and just have a look at what was going on around the course. So it was not a marshal position. They weren't extra positions that in the course of their duties throughout the day that they would take turns monitoring the course.
Okay, thank you for that. My curiosity, is that added within this budget for this year then? Is it,
There is not a there's not a course marshal included in the proposed budget for 2025.
okay? So did they lower their costs for labor if they were able to do it with the budget they had previously in 2024, even with direction from council not to do it? Have we taken that amount out of here so that we don't have the extra staff hours to be able to a course marshal with direction from council?
Staffing levels have not changed from 2024. Again, it's my understanding that they would still require those positions to fill the shifts at the pro shop and the groundskeeping and the maintenance and stuff that are required.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from council? Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just looking at it individually. Golf course, just to be clear what it includes and not includes. So I don't see a separate line item for like golf carts. Is that correct, that it's not in this budget, or is it under revenue, for example?
Ms. Scott?
If we're looking at revenue, it forms part of the total revenues that are shown on the operating actual versus budget history.
Okay. And given that, where would we're looking at approving like replacement golf carts, under what line would that be?
Ms. Scott?
The replacement of the golf carts is a capital, not an operating.
Oh, of course, I'm sorry, yeah. I'm good.
Okay, any other discussion or questions from council? Ms. Scott, any high points that staff would like to bring forward?
No, there was nothing that the Director of Community Services had pointed out as a highlight that he wanted to make sure that we discussed.
Okay, thank you. Going to call the question. All in favor? Carried. The next one up is, just want to make sure I have it right, because I have it as facilities and community services. I only have paperwork for community services. I'm not sure if that we all have. Mrs. Scott? Sorry, I'll be honest with you, I did not look at page 1 of 2 when it was on the front of my agenda. I went through each one. I didn't pay attention. There was a list right there. But it does say under N is facilities and then O is community services. But in my budget paperwork, I only have community services. You have it in the other one? I'll have to go over then. I'm not gonna worry about it. Take a motion. Councilor Norbury?
They approve the facilities budget as presented.
Thank you. Seconder? Councilor Dussault, discussion? Due to it wasn't in the main agenda, I didn't have an opportunity to view it. Be honest, if I have any questions, let's bring them forward at the business arising. I didn't have an opportunity to read it. So, any questions from council? Any highlights from staff? Ms. Scott?
No.
Thank you. Call the question. All in favor? Carried. Okay, on to community service. Take a motion, please. Councilor Dussault.
I make a motion that we accept community services budget as presented.
Seconder, Councilor Noxana. Discussion, questions, council? Any highlights, Ms. Scott, in regards to this budget?
Just having a quick look through the notes I made with the Director of Community Services to make sure there's nothing that we need to specifically point out. The one thing he did want to point out, not specific to the budget, but in some previous discussions, we keep referring to his budget as being the community center budget. But he did wanted to highlight, it's not just the community center, it's community services, and it encompasses a lot more than just the community center. Other than that, no, I have nothing else to point out on this budget.
What does it all encompass, Ms. Scott?
It includes the Visitor Information Center, what or not. Sorry. Yeah, Willow Hall is another one of those facilities. Off the top of my head, that's.
I appreciate it. I just think you mentioned it, and I think it's
Yes,
important
yes.
to have those concepts. I also understand that the community center, community services provides janitorial services for the whole district of Tumbler Ridge. And I think that needs to be noted, and I appreciate that the Director of Community Services wanted that highlighted, that it's not just a community center. I think it's really important when we seen previously when the pie chart was shown to council and on where some of the money had gone and who had the bigger piece of the pie. And I think it's really important to realize that they are operating the visitor center, the Willow Hall, janitorial service throughout the municipality. I think it's really important to note that. Okay, any questions from council? Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a curiosity of mine, in 2023, looking at operating actual versus budget history, page 2, we have just over 1.1 million in amortization, and it doesn't show up the next couple of years. I'm just wondering sort of what happened to that equipment, if it got moved to another budget, or if we're doing something differently, since that's a nice big number. And
Yeah, Ms. Scott?
I don't believe amortization is something we budget for, that is a year-end, something that gets added after, but I want to make sure I'm not giving you incorrect information, so I will ask the Director of Finance if she can provide additional information on that.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Yeah, amortization is a year-end. It comes off of equity, so it's not like it's a financial, we're not taking those funds and putting it into a reserve fund, so it's not like there's actual cash moving around.
Follow up, Councillor Hoffman, you good? Okay. Any other questions from council? Okay, going to call the question. All in favor? Carried. Non-reporting. Councillor Noxena, sorry.
I motion that we approve non-reporting as presented.
Seconder, Councillor Norberry. Discussion? Any highlights in regards to this, Ms. Scott?
I will ask the Director of Finance if she has anything she would like to highlight in this particular budget.
No, this is mainly a budget as transfers in and out.
Terrific. Thank you very much. Any questions from council? Okay, going to call the question. All in favor? Carried. Fiscal services. Councilor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor, that we approve the fiscal services budget as presented.
Seconder, Councilor Noxena. Discussion? Any highlights from staff in regards to that?
Again, I will ask the Director of Finance if she has anything that she would like to highlight in this budget.
Mayor, Council, as you know, interest rates are changing, so that's reflected in this budget. We've been very successful with what we've been receiving for the last year, and some of those are being consistent into the next couple of years, but as we move forward, we're going to find that our interest that we were receiving will be dwindling.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're all going to see that. Okay, any questions or that from council? Okay, going to call the question. All in favor? Carried. Ms. Scott, I just need to confirm, with us doing them individually, we won't have to do number 2 in the agenda.
Correct.
Thank you. Any questions from the gallery? Oh, where am I at then? Notes. Okay, that's not in this budget. I don't think it's in this one. I could be wrong. I just didn't have it in my front sheet. My apologies to council, so thank you. At least we didn't wait. Councilor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor Kakalka, that we approve the water budget as presented.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Noxena. Discussion? Ms. Scott, any points staff would like to bring forward?
I don't have anything to highlight. I will ask the Director of Operations if there's anything he would like to highlight in this budget.
Do you have anything?
Thank you, Ms. Scott, Mayor and Council. I'm going to defer this to the CFO.
I just wanted to point out to Mayor and Council that there's this includes a transfer to a capital reserve, which is not quite the amount that we're collecting for parcel tax, but we are making those steps and we're progressing to the way we were wanting to go.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion from staff, or from council, sorry? Ms. Scott, if I may, I know we're making progress in regards to that. Do we have I would think a year that we're caught up in regards to water?
I will ask the Director of Finance if she can provide that information.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. At this point, we haven't set any rate increases past 2025. So that is, we would be bringing forward probably this year another plan to look at rate increases for the next couple of years to start bringing water and sewer along so that that parcel tax is able to fully go into the reserve fund and meet the needs for the future. Okay,
thank you. Any questions from council? Okay, going to call the question. All in favor? Carried. Sarah, take a recommendation, please. Councillor Noxena?
I motion that we accept the sewer budget as presented.
Okay, seconder. Councillor Norbury, discussion? Ms. Scott, any highlights from staff?
Again, I will ask the Director of Operations if there's anything he would like to highlight in this budget.
Thank you, Ms. Scott, Mayor and Council. There is nothing to add at this time.
Okay. Call the question. All in favor? Carried. All right, now we're back to that step. Any questions from the gallery? Yeah, please.
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. Just a general question here because I'm a new returning citizen to Tumbler Ridge here, and my name is Wayne Carpenter, by the way. I had a question in regards to playing catch-up here on the budget itself and understanding what I took down as a note as the special projects budget or whatever there. Is there a breakout of special projects that the general public has access to?
Yeah, that would have been at our capital and special projects budget. We can get you that information. It's right on our website, but I would think, I mean, normally I wouldn't ask staff to confirm, but I'm pretty sure we could ask staff to print that off. But it is also available online on our website, on our meetings. But Ms. Scott, we could print that off and have it accessible?
I believe we can, but I'll ask the Director of Finance if she has that available for distribution.
Mayor and Council, yes, I can print that off and have that ready to go. The same as what was posted on the line.
Yeah, and it is, and I understand not everybody is online friendly, I know myself, but yeah, so we can get you a printed copy.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. And just one more question, if I may, please. Playing catch up again or whatever, understanding the last discussion here on the possible water increase cost or whatever. I did pick up just this afternoon a document at the front counter that's talking about a survey as such and looking at 3 economic possible developments. So I'm wondering if those costs would be reviewed as well through council prior to, you know, an economic development process taking place with water in mind, sort of thing, for increased cost.
Yeah, I would think as we look at future developments, there's always a cost to those future developments. Some of them would be in partnerships possibly with First Nations, but also looking at investors and stuff to come in communities. So my understanding, again, and council can weigh in, but you know those costs are usually recouped to put the water lines in and stuff like that. The reason there was conversation tonight in regards to where we sit in water, our reserves were we never seen an increase since staff may have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the report was 2015, and I could be wrong on the year. There's never been a water increase from that year, so we actually didn't have enough money saved up in our accounts if something was major to happen. So summer of 2024, we ended up with a fairly, or it might have been in the fall, fairly big leak was detected down by Flatbed. So there's, you know, obviously all of our infrastructure in Tumbler Ridge is 41 years old. So if we see failures, we could see failures within the municipality as a whole. Instead of where other communities slowly built their community out, we haven't started that building out yet. That's what we're looking at in regards to that survey. But yeah, so all of our infrastructure is the same age. So to me, we need to make sure we have enough reserve money if something was needing replacement. That's why we did an increase in the last couple of years on water and sewer to try and make up that gap. Okay, give me 1 second. Councilor Norberg?
Thank you, Mayor. Just to kind of understand your question, it sounded to me like you're kind of curious if the proposed expansions, if they would cover, like if we were anticipating adding their costs into our current budget. From the way that we are moving towards now, and the reason why we've seen so much increases is that we need to have taxes collected for water and sewer to be parity. And so moving forward, when we do expand into those areas, the taxes collected onto that area will keep our water and sewer fund at parity, so equal, is my understanding, I believe.
That's how I read it. Did you have another question?
Possibly, Your Honor. If, just want to do a backup here again, because you just made point on cost or whatever, and I'm thinking about a comment that was talked about within the budget for emergency services. And my experience in the past is that emergency services, especially when it comes to the fire process or whatever like that, and thinking about evacuations of a community and stuff, and looking at the budget and thinking that most municipalities are on par with what I see in the budget here, and that the money allotted for an evacuation or whatever is minimal as such, kept by the municipality, and this one seems to be very low as well. Just wondering, is there a reason behind that? Because other municipalities as well, I know that they rely upon provincial resources in those applications, so maybe that's the case here as well.
Yeah, and that's what it is EMCR, once there's an emergency declared within Tumbler Ridge, whether it's fire or other things, and that kicks in. I mean, I have staff answer. It was going to be a question I asked earlier, but I did get an answer for it. But wages and stuff like that are costed to the municipality when the EOC is open is actually all claimed back. But I'll just get confirmation like that from Ms. Scott, if I may.
I will defer that question to the Director of Protective Services, who I believe can provide a more comprehensive response.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Mayor and Council, to the gallery's question, yes, any of the costs that would be associated with an evacuation or an activation of our emergency response plan, as long as it met the criteria for EMCR, would be completely covered, including wages, material supplies. We don't budget for these things on a regular basis, understanding that similar to 2023, when we had a significant amount of wages for our evacuation, it was just an in and an out. It shows a one-time spike in the budget for expenditures, but it's recouped through the province.
Perfect, thank you. Any emailed in questions, Ms. Scott?
No.
Okay. Just to give you an opportunity, do you have any other questions? Okay, Councilor Norberg.
That the February 4th, 2025 Budget Council meeting be adjourned.
Seconder, Councilor Dussault. All in favor? Carried.